recording.
You're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. This is Conlon.
This is Nathan.
And we're watching network television because me and Nathan do not watch network television. We are currently watching season 1 of Blacklist, which first aired in 2013. We are watching season 2 of The Mentalist, which first aired in 2009. And we're watching season 2 of Miami Vice, which first aired in 1985. And as always, we start with the Blacklist. We have season 1, episode 19, The Pavlovich Brothers, numbers 119 through 122.
Yep.
That is the title.
For you guys putting one of those yarn charts on the wall, those are the numbers.
Original air date, April 21st, 2014, NBC Monday. The Pavlovich brothers specialize in abductions of high-value targets, and according to Red, they are planning their next hit. While the team tries to protect the next target, Red has a job of his own for the Pavlovich brothers. Elsewhere, Liz patiently tries to uncover the truth about Tom. Showrunner John Bokenkamp, written by Elizabeth Benjamin, and directed by Paul A. Edwards.
This one starts off in China.
They were in the Shangzhou labor camp in Jiangsu, China.
Yep.
Probably said all that wrong, but anyways.
Probably.
The World Health Organization is distributing vaccines at a labor camp.
Sinister.
And there's some nurses, and they seem sketchy, and I don't know which way this is going. They give the lady a different injection, and she starts going into a seizure. And I wrote, "Is this a ruse?" And yes, it is a ruse. They hop into an ambulance, or what you think is an ambulance, and then everyone starts speaking English. It's like, okay, this is a CIA job.
Yep.
They get stopped at the gate, but the ambulance does, but they're not actually in an ambulance. They're in a different truck because the guards are like, hey, something's weird here. And they go back and watch the footage, and as they're at the gates, they're like, stop them.
Yeah, they see it's clearly a different, much larger syringe that one of the nurses swapped out of a drawer. Because it actually did stop the lady's heart, whatever they gave her, because they're in the back of the maintenance truck using paddles to restart her heart. So.
And they give her the adrenaline shot, very Pulp Fiction. So, and then they tell her like, "We're taking you to DC." Then we cut to, I didn't look up if this is a real place, Kraljevo, Serbia.
Might as well be.
Kraljevo, Serbia. We got dudes with guns saying they need to go to Washington, and that Hezbollah can wait.
Yep, Hezbollah can wait. That's going to be a new musical.
Yeah, doesn't Hezbollah mean like heaven or something?
Party of God, I think.
Okay. But I don't think these guys are, I think that's meant to be like they're killing Hezbollah agents.
Yeah, these guys are just mercenaries.
Okay, that's not just some weird phrase.
I mean, it might be, but I think these guys, that is an actual terrorist group / political organization that operates in the environs of Israel and the West Bank, I believe.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Then we cut to Tom is looking for his keys while Liz is putting a tracker in said keys. Which it's a battery tracker. It's like, oh, it's all in one. It's an all-in-one unit.
Yep.
Battery tracker, it all holds together. Although they do put a blinking light on it. Not because it makes any common sense, but just so to let the audience know she's putting something weird in there. I mean, it blinks so you know it's a tracker. So it's one of those things where it's like, yes, it doesn't actually make sense, but for Hollywood it conveys a lot of information very quickly.
Yeah, because otherwise we'd have to have a scene where one of the tech guys is giving her this battery. And...
Yeah, Rob would be like, so that wasn't a normal battery that she put in there.
This transmits on a UHF frequency. We can track his location anywhere in the world using the Keyhole 5 next generation spy sat. Like, yeah, we could have a whole scene like that, but it's like, why?
All right, so yeah, I'm sorry. I'm coming around on the idea that like, yeah, we criticize these things for not being real because they're blinking lights and they're very. It's like no one would actually do that. But like There's a reason you do that because it gets a lot across very quickly. You don't have to bother with it.
Yeah, I just like to joke about it. I know why they're doing it. If I was in charge of making the show, it's like, how can we convey this in the least amount of time possible? It's like, okay.
Although, like you go, have you been watching Barry this season?
No, I haven't. I've been meaning to, but no reason not to. I just
it's a very weird turn for. Well, it's like the expected turn. It's like essentially you have to get to the point where it stops being a comedy and it just becomes a dark drama.
Yeah.
That's this season. Anyways, there's kind of a funny thing where they have a talking bomb that doesn't make any sense, but because it's a comedy, it's
oh, an old John Carpenter reference. Bomb, listen to me, bomb. I'm not going to explode. It's the only thing I was made to do. I have to explode. No, bomb, listen.
It's not exactly like that, but it's still funny.
Yeah,
it's along the lines of that silliness though. So
it's a Dark Star reference, I'm sure. Yeah, Barry reminds me of the Australian thing that ran on Fox called Mr. In Between. It's becoming more like that.
Huh. I don't think I ever saw that show. When did that run?
Oh, till recently, I think.
Huh.
It's about a guy, he's a hitman, but he's also like got a girlfriend and a family, and he's trying to,
balance his life and his work.
Yeah, he unflaggingly follows his orders, and he's loyal to the guy who he takes orders from, but he's also not conflicted by the violence and murder, but just how do I keep these parts of my life separate?
Yeah.
It's like there's a lot of parallels there, but it's set in Australia, and it's also brutally violent. Like they show someone getting shot in the head with a shotgun. Like they don't show up they don't linger on it, but that's after a dude gets lit on fire. It's like, wow, this show just really hits the gas sometimes. And Barry does things kind of like that, but it's more like, how is this guy this good? Like, because he knows how to, like, Barry's like, yeah, he knows what to do with guns and stuff, but he's obviously like annoyed by things, and
yeah,
like, you guys are just screwing this up for me, and I just want to be an actor. Everyone's manipulating me, and all I'm good at is killing. I don't really read people.
I found my life's calling, but I'm not really good at it.
I'm good at the actual job, but dealing with all the people is frustrating to me. So yeah.
There's an idle mention that Jolene's case has been changed from missing person to a murder investigation. Tom's like, I wonder why that happened. Liz is like, I don't know.
Yeah, they're getting more awkward together. I mean, at the end of this episode, that's kind of concluded, but yeah, it's always getting like, there's a lot of like foreground, background camera shots where he's saying something like obviously lying. She knows he's lying. He knows he's lying, and they're just kind of like, yeah, this is amazing. I don't know where this is going. What do you think, Liz? I don't know. It's all kind of weird.
It's like this musical chairs of acting.
Yeah, it's well, because that's tough to act. It's like, okay, here's the thing. You guys both know you're lying to each other. You don't know all the details.
You gotta lie, but you gotta make it sound convincing, but you also have to convey in your face that you know you're lying and you don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, the guy who plays Tom is a good actor at that.
Yeah,
because he is good at like switching gears between like, I'm an elementary school teacher, I'm a world-class assassin. Like it's almost, yeah, he does do a fairly convincing job.
He probably does some weird thing that we don't even pick up on. It's like when he's lying, he doesn't move his eyebrows or something like that.
Yeah, if we were good at poker, Tom's lying.
I heard a crazy story. I don't know if it's true, but it's like apparently, who's the guy from Walker, Texas Ranger?
Oh, the Chuck Norris?
Yeah, Chuck Norris. Apparently, like, he's like a big fan of Denzel Washington as an actor.
Okay.
And he'll constantly reference him to tell other people like, now this is acting. And like his big thing is like, look, he doesn't move his eyebrows.
Okay.
So
the craft.
And Chuck Norris isn't a good actor, but he's a presence, so that sometimes that's just enough.
Yeah, Chuck Norris was like the archetype for the Terminator. It's like, oh, this guy's just here to mess things up, but he's not like a machine. He's just a guy.
Yeah.
but he has that same like menacing. It's like, yeah, he don't mess with him. He's gonna mess you up, and it's kind of like a Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. It's like that guy says like 15 things, but it's like, oh, you just know he's evil. Like you're not gonna win with that guy. He is too evil. He's always a step ahead of you, and even if you get the jump on him, it's like, yeah, he's just gonna pull buckshot out of his leg and come shoot you anyway,
Whereas with Chuck
or
Norris,
not.
it's like you're not going to get ahead of him because he's holding back so much pain that he's going to unleash it on you.
Yeah, he's like just a rage projector. It's like, oh, the gate's open, look out, you know. And
But
then
it's not that he's actually like conveying that and acting. It's just that he's like
no, you just know that.
he's doing so little that you impose that on top of it.
Yeah, you're like doing the acting for him. It's like, look how he projects like menace and fury, and it's like, well, no, he's not, but you see that in him because it's like, I need something here, man. What's this guy doing?
Or you have the opposite of that, where it's like Steven Seagal, where he's just like so ridiculous.
Oh man, I love the Steven Seagal stories on podcasts.
I like when people break it down, where it's basically like he like he's like the, I don't know, I'm not sure the master of it, but he is just so into cultural appropriation.
Oh yeah,
it's like, I'm a Native American, I'm part black, I'm part everything, because that's what the cool thing is.
yeah, and I'm like also like I have throw some Asian mysticism in there just because. But yeah, I'm gonna talk like a black guy from Louisiana all the time. It's like, what are you doing, dude?
You know, and I think he actually, you know, he's always saying he's like Italian too, but I think he's like Polish or something like that. It's all.
I just live for this. I just like the stories of him.
Yeah.
And then the Saturday Night Live stories were great about things that he thought would be humorous. It's like, I'm going to play a rapist. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, that's out right now. We can't do this is in the 90s. It's not like now. And even then they were like, yeah, I don't think that's going to work.
I remember somebody's like, you know, cause it's like kind of that maybe the tail end of his like height in Hollywood, and he's doing the movie called The Glimmer Man.
Yep.
Where he's like partnered up with Keenan Wayans, where it's like,
Yep.
okay, you give that guy, he's a comedic actor, you give him the comedy, and you could just see like throughout the movie where it's like Steven Seagal liked his lines better than him. He's like, I want to be funny too.
Yeah.
No, Steven, you suck at
that. My favorite Steven Seagal movie is always, and it's mainly because of damn it, drew a blank on his name. The guy, crazy actor we like. Damn, Al Gore's roommate in Harvard. The guy from Texas. Oh, what is his name? What are his famous?
Are you thinking of Under Siege? Are you thinking of?
Well, there are three great performances.
Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones was great. The other guy, Gary Busey, was great.
Yeah,
like that was a great cast for that movie.
I mean, that was directed by the guy who went on to do. Now I'm forgetting everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah, me too. I'm terrible.
The Fugitive.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So it was a competent director.
That's my favorite Steven Seagal movie, but not because of Steven Seagal.
Yeah, yeah.
It's because they just said Tommy Lee Jones, like, hey, you go nuts, and Gary Busey, you're already nuts, so just keep doing you. And then we got Steven Seagal, who's almost like the straight guy in the whole movie. It's like, oh, these people are acting more and more insane, but you're just still like, I'm a Navy SEAL, but I'm a cook because I'm so outside the wall of rules that it's like they're just letting.
He wants to be the ultimate badass, where he's like has no problem killing, but he's like promoting peace, and
yeah,
he just wants to be everything.
You kill only when it's necessary, but you make it very necessary
and as violent as possible, so
and
let everyone else know.
Yeah, just rip someone's like vocal cords out so they die like an alien or something. Anyway, The Blacklist.
All right, one last Steven Seagal thing. I think peak Steven Seagal is Executive Decision, where people are like, "Oh yeah, another action Steven Seagal movie." He's dead in like the first 10 minutes.
Yep. Well, that was a perfect role for Steven Seagal because he
Yeah.
was there long enough to establish a presence and then gone.
um,
I always thought the guy from Saturday Night Live was piloting the stealth plane in that too, but it wasn't. The guy, Frankenstein Christmas guy, what's his name? The guy whose wife shot him.
Phil Hartman.
Yeah, I always thought Phil Hartman was the pilot of the stealth plane in Executive Decision. Because you can't see, you just see his eyes. He's got a mask on.
Yeah.
But his eye expressions is like, is that Phil Hartman? Is he just doing this for like a goof? Because you wouldn't know, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
But I always thought, it's like, why is Phil Hartman flying the plane in this?
Hey,
Not the plane, but the stealth infiltration plane.
Yeah.
Which somehow like was a stealth bomber or a stealth fighter. That's like,
well,
how are there guys in there? Where are the engines?
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. It's just a stealth glider at this point. Cool idea though.
No. Okay, so we cut to from the Tom and Liz thing, and now we're at Liz's conspiracy board. Liz thinks Tom killed Jolene, and then Red just confirms that. Says he kept it from her for her benefit.
It just pisses her off even more. Yeah. It's like, Red, you're not reading the room. It's like, don't reveal more things that you've kept from her.
And then Red just pivots to the Pavlovich brothers.
Yeah.
This is a problem. And then like credits and then Pavlovich brothers. And then we're like in the post office, and Cooper's given a breakdown, or maybe it's Wrestler, and he's like, and we find out like these guys are the same guys from the first episode that like set like blocked off the bridge, set everything on fire, and kidnapped the general's daughter. It's like, oh, okay, this is bringing those guys
and
back.
Killed like a couple FBI or Secret Service or whatever.
Yeah,
they almost both. Killed Liz.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because Wrestler definitely wants to get them for revenge, so he's waiting to kill some people. And we find out the lady from the who's broken out of prison. She's a Chinese doctor named Xiaopin Li.
Yeah.
And she says she knows that there's some secret bioweapon program in China. And
dun dun dun. In a place called Wuhan. I'm sorry.
Well, they say it's. Oh, what do they say it is? They don't say it's a virus. I think they say it's like a germ or something like that. But I think, actually, I mean, I don't think germ has any specification. I think germ could be a virus, bacteria, or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe, I'm not sure. There's probably some designation, but yeah, they didn't say virus. Which that would be what coronavirus is. But they didn't say bacteria. They didn't say, what's the other things? They didn't say a parasite. I don't think there's ever been an industrial grade parasite inflicted militarily, but that I know of.
I hope not. That's everyone's going to shit worms to death. It's like, oh, this is the worst possible death.
And the other thing is a prion disease, which those are crazy. Those are...
Oh, the prions, the one that live at like boiling water temperatures.
Well, I forget what it is. They're like, I don't think they're actually. I don't know how to describe it. It's a protein that's like gone bad.
Yeah.
It's what so it's like what mad cow disease is.
Oh, okay.
Or my favorite, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease.
Yeah.
So it's like prion. It's also like a spongiform encephalopathy. There's a lot of names that are associated with it, but basically it's a protein disorder, and it's incurable. And I don't exactly know how it transmits, but like when they have to do autopsies on people that like died from Creutzfeldt-Jakob's disease, they have to do autopsies with gauntlets with like
the robot arms from like the Andromeda strain, like that kind of stuff.
Well, no, the ones I seen, it was just basically like medieval. They basically have medieval gauntlets. They do. But yeah, you probably get some robot arms in there to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, she says she knows about some program they have. The CIA move Lee to a chopper because they know the brothers are going to grab her, but then the brothers are the chopper.
Yep.
They fly away with her. And then the yeah, it's they call it germ warfare program, and the program is called White Fog.
Yeah.
Which is a good ominous name.
That's a good generic name. My favorite germ or chemical / biological weapon is something called wet eye, which we're not even supposed to know about because it's secret, but it's like, oh, it leaked out. And then they'll say it's like a pure work of fiction, but they'll say it so vehemently. It's like, oh, no, you psychopaths developed this. It basically is exactly what it sounds like, something that dissolves your eyes.
Oh,
but it doesn't do it to everyone. It does it to like every fifth person.
huh.
Because it's a psychological warfare. Because if you see your friend's eyes boiling out of his head, you're going to throw down that gun and just run away from the battlefield. Because that's like watching The Thing in real life or something. Like, nope, I'm done.
That's when they start issuing glasses to everybody that are just like smoked over, so you can't see their eyes bleed.
Yeah. It's like, we got a cure for this.
Disinformation is the best.
Now they'll say it's fake. It's like, no, that was made up. It's like, well, okay, I know it's not because it sounds too right.
Then we have a scene where Red and Liz are watching Tom as he called in sick to work, and he's doing something clandestine in the background. He's at the National Archives, and then Liz starts tailing Tom against Red's wishes because he already has like 800 people.
Yeah, it's like, I've already put like $500,000 into this tale. I don't need you screwing it up.
We see the brothers like prepping Lee for something, and she like writes something on a wall, and they knock her out with some drug. I think we go to,
and these guys are just completely inhuman too. Like the Pavlovich brothers are just like, I mean, they laugh and they have like they smile about things and giggle, but they're just like completely. They just basically grab this woman and pick her up and jam a syringe in her neck with one hand. Like they're just.
Well, yeah. When they get orders, they just execute them. They don't. They put all humanity to a side. Well, I don't know. Sometimes there's that one little thing where when they were taking the daughter and they have the car overturned, and the guy's like saying like, I'm gonna drop a tear gas grenade in 5 seconds, put the mask on her so we can take her out.
Yeah,
it's like, and they do that, and it seems like, okay, well, they care somewhat, but then they intended to just kill Liz immediately, but like they like Wrestler got the drop on one of them or something.
Right? Yeah, he shot someone in the back or something. Yeah,
as they jumped over the bridge or whatever. And yeah, I think we go to commercial because we come back and like Liz and Tom are having another weird conversation because it's not gonna not be weird.
Well, yeah, he finds the music box in the basement.
Yeah,
that Wrestler made. It's like this. Oh, I forgot about that. It's like, this thing looks like it's probably worth $10,000. Like, oh yeah, I forgot about it.
Yeah, she's like, oh, it's my father's box, not saying which one or anything like that.
Yeah,
because she just got it, like essentially like last week.
Yeah,
and then suddenly they have a dog.
Yeah, I don't remember the dog. I think it was mentioned, but yeah.
And as Tom goes out for a walk, he just like, you hear the whimper of the dog as he like left the dog like in between the doorways. and she goes out there, and that's when she knows like, all right, Tom's gone. And then we see Tom makes like an evac call to his handlers or whatever. He
does the cool cell phone thing again. He just crushes it. It's on a payphone.
Crushes the keys too, just to make sure like make anything on them could be bugged.
Yeah.
And then Red and Liz argue about what to do with Tom. Red's just kind of more like laissez-faire, like, let it, just see what happens. And Liz is like, no, we gotta get him.
Yeah, and she's like acting appropriately. Like, this guy pretended to love me. I slept with this guy for like 3 years. I wanted to have children with this guy. It's like, I want to know what this is all about. And Red's like, maybe the answers you get are not what you want, or he's playing that game again, and she's
Oh,
like,
that
no.
well, there's like it's a moment that like it makes sense. She's like, I had sex with him like yesterday. It's like, you know how awkward that was, and like, you know what makes it more awkward is realizing Red's her dad.
Like, really, you slutty little beast.
I don't think that's an ever conversation the daughter would have with her father.
No, that's not like something you would.
But being that, like, you know, they're essentially strangers, but just biologically linked, or whatever. There's still, we could still just throw that in the wind.
Yeah, because we don't know. I mean, it's like strongly suspected, and it's been
Yeah.
hinted at, but it's like we don't exactly know.
Liz is a clone.
My female clone.
The FBI trailed the brothers based on evidence of on the forged chopper that they just like left somewhere and, you know, thermited it and ran away.
Yeah.
But they get some like paint stuff, and they figure it's a cool, it's a good Aram scene because he's just doing everything. I mean, he probably has like a bunch of people getting into this stuff, but he's like, here's this chemical compound, here's like farms that like switch from tobacco to corn because of politics and the like that stuff. It's like, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good detailing. And then we have Red and Dembe find this one guy who was gonna hand off a book to Tom in the archives, but they didn't make the handoff because Liz was watching. And it's Jeffrey P. Severs. I don't think we'll ever see again. And but what's funny is like Dembe, you know, Dembe's just being intimidated, and he like is basically dismantling this guy's wallet and photocopying everything, ID, credit cards, everything.
Yeah.
And then Red gets a list of books from this guy, because also like the book they have, it has all a bunch of like stuff in it, which I guess would be useful to him somehow. We don't know how, but Red says like this will just take just a minute, but no, Dembe is going to photocopy that whole book.
Yeah.
Which won't take just a minute.
Yeah, that's going to take like 400 copies.
But he does have another weird, like, I wonder if this was written or if just like they're just telling I forget the actor's name. I always forget his name. The guy who plays Red.
Oh, yeah. Why can I not think of that? Now I just associate him with this guy. James Spader.
Yeah, James Spader. So James Spader. Yeah, I wonder if James Spader just made this up because he's talking about this guy named Tracy Woods, who's like this eccentric water pump repairman.
Yeah.
It's like, that guy better show up in an episode somewhere. Who are you?
Yeah, that was a long story because I thought they were just testing this guy's like, oh, have you been there? Do you know this guy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't exist. I'm going to describe someone very distinct. It's like, yeah, no, I never met him, or yeah, I know who he is, and I don't know which one would be the wrong answer.
Yeah.
But it's like, but it never really paid off. It was just like a long story.
I'm just telling James Spader to fill, and he's like, all right. Then the cut to the Pavlov brothers, and they're putting Lee in a cargo box with oxygen, but then Red just shows up to like meet the brothers and like cut to commercials where it's like, okay, Red's gonna make a deal somehow. But we come back from commercial, and the FBI raid the brothers' place, but they aren't there. We cut to somewhere else, and there's a guy who's like disguised as a homeless person, and he like puts a bomb in like a dumpster, and as he's walking away with his cart, you can clearly see an AK-47.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's an RPD.
It's it's an RPK.
Okay.
Which is just an assault version of an AK-47 with a long fixed barrel that's much heavier.
Yeah, because it's meant to be a machine gun, so it's a very heavy barrel, so it can withstand the heat. And it's a machine gun too. And an incredibly long bipod on it, which they don't use. They're just firing from the hip the whole time here.
Yeah, they're just blasting through because they don't really get into the building. They just kill the two guys outside because, like I said, the homeless guy clearly has like this giant machine gun in his cart, and they just start firing into the top of the building
Yeah.
with these heavy assault, which it uses the same round as an AK, but I guess because of the longer, thicker barrel, the it has a little more velocity,
Yeah, it'd have more muzzle velocity the longer it is.
and it also has a 40 round magazine as opposed to a 30. And so yeah, they're just raking this building down, trying to drive the guys out because they're just going to shoot from the second floor down. And
And okay, wait, this is Tom's hideout. This is his new hideout. So.
oh yeah, these are the people trying to get rid of, or not get rid of, protect Tom and get him out of the country or whatever.
But we never met these guys before, so they just die.
Yeah.
And Tom gets out, like get in a car, and then like Tom just uses one of these guys as human shields to block the bullets. Is one of the
Yeah, that's when the guy rides up next to him on the motorcycle, and then Children of Men style, he opens the door and knocks the guy off the motorcycle. And he's driving a super sport Mustang of some kind that's being outrun and outmuscled by a Dodge Challenger, or no, Charger, I think, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, that doesn't seem like a good chase. But maybe it's the one with the 360 V8 in it or something.
Liz goes home, and the brothers have Tom tied up there because they eventually get. They basically just one guy comes up with I don't know, like with construction equipment, and they just box him in from all sides and they take him in.
Yeah. Tom stops fighting because these guys are clearly just going to kill him if he doesn't.
And then so they have Tom tied up in a chair. The brothers leave. Cut to commercial. Come back. Liz and Tom are just having it out. And then Tom just keeps saying he was doing his job. I think we're
and
cutting.
he breaks his thumb.
Well, yeah, I have a bunch of notes in between, so I think we're cutting back and forth between a bunch of different stuff. Because we have Mira and Aram are decrypting Lee's message, which is like a hell of a stretch. It's like Bernoulli's principal like compound, and they like, oh, they're shipping her out on a boat. It's like,
yeah, because it's got to do with water. It's like, yeah, let's leave a really obscure thing, but maybe a scientist would. I don't know.
I mean, Aram's a nerd, so yeah, sure. And
yeah,
assuming this doctor is also a nerd, so yeah, she's just hoping there's a nerd on the team. We'll get it. I have a note that Red negotiated for Tom, but he couldn't get Lee in the deal, so that's why he's able to get the brothers to help him out with Tom, but he can't get Lee back to help everybody. But the FBI show up at the dock to talk to Ralph Sisko, who's not really important. He's a dude. We have 2 doc episodes this week. Then we're cutting back to Liz interrogating Tom, and she breaks his thumb with pliers.
yeah.
Which he kind of dares her. Is like, you're not gonna do that. Crack. But it's fun because he's like, he continues the conversation, and he's like, something you shouldn't do is when you have somebody in handcuffs, don't break their thumb. So he gets out of the cuffs and they have a fight. It's like all over the room. But he gets her gun, and he has her handcuff herself to the stairs or the banister, and he basically he says like, I'm the good guy. Like, you don't know what like Red's actually doing. Like, I'm trying to help you, and then like the only way he can prove that, he says like, I know you know where the key is. This is the box it's to. Go get that box, and then like everything will be revealed to you. And then he just leaves. The FBI catch up to the brothers as they're loading Lee into the boat, and they kill all the brothers and get Lee. So yeah, that's wrapped up.
Yeah. The Pavlovich brothers die pretty quick in this shootout as compared to others they've been in, where they dominate the field.
And I wouldn't be surprised if they like rise one of those guys from the dead from later episodes.
Apparently, they're Serbian mercenaries who work for Milosevic.
Ah, okay.
So it's just throwing a bunch of names around that people vaguely recognize and associate with bad stuff. But
Oh yeah, so Tom tells her to go to the get the key from the lamp and go to a bank for bank box 3929. I just wrote that down. I don't know if that's it's like all these numbers will mean something. I just have it down just because it was given. If they give a number, write it down.
yeah, it's always
See
good
if
to write those down.
um, but Red still has like people following Tom, so they still got him under um, under watch. Then we have Cooper inquiries wrestler about like what's going on with Liz, and the wrestler just says like there are problems at home.
Yeah,
Which is correct, but he doesn't know why he's correct.
yeah,
um and then we have like Red giving a pep talk to Liz and like the fight ravaged home. And then this is like a montage. And then she like there's music playing, I forget what music is playing, and she goes to that box. She opens it up. There's an orange envelope with like a blot on it. I couldn't decipher
yeah.
if it actually meant anything.
I thought it was a wax seal at first, but it's like, nah, I don't know if that's that. It's kind of
um,
old school.
and she pulls out a photograph that we don't see, and then she has like a shock face, and then cut to black. So did make me want to like I had to like hold back a lot of things, like just click like next episode. Like,
Oh yeah, because mine starts a countdown as soon as the credits. Like next episode, he's like, yeah, let's see what happens. Like, oh no, forget it all. I don't, wait. So. That's part of the fun of the show too. So watch them 1 week at a time. We don't read the wikis to find out that like, oh yeah, they're actually aliens, or I want to know.
But yeah, it was a charged episode. I wouldn't necessarily say it was like the greatest, but it was still fun. So
Yeah, we didn't have a lot of redisms in this. Like we had one speech, but it was kind of innocuous, and we didn't know if it was an interrogation trick or just a time filler.
yeah,
So yeah, because usually that's what I remember the most is like the things he says. It's like I used drugs in the desert and I walked and I had an orgy with 9 women and I almost died. Or, he always has something weird and inappropriate to say. You don't know if it's true or not, but yeah.
But the thing you get out of this episode is like Tom's the bad guy, right? And then at the end of it, it's like, is Red the bad guy? Because we know Red's the bad guy.
Tom could have easily killed Liz, and he didn't. And he said at the end, he's like, "Look, I'm not the bad guy here."
Oh, there was a good speech when he's tied up where he's saying like, or basically how he felt sorry for her because he knew he had her, like when she drew like some heart on his shoe in the dust, and like that was really good detail.
Yeah, that's like intimate detail that's believable.
And like he felt sorry that he was like, oh no, I tricked you, it worked. The fuck. Yeah, he's got a job to do.
Yeah.
For our second show, we have The Mentalist, Season 2, Episode 19, Blood Money. Original air date, April 22nd, 2010, CBS Thursday. Patrick's reckless behavior catches up with him when his actions get a case against a hitman thrown out of court in Lisbon on suspension. But when the hitman is shot and killed, he has a shot at redemption. Showrunner Bruno Heller, written by Ashley Gable and Jordan Harper, and directed by Adam Kane. I think
this episode started off kind of goofy.
Yeah. Well, like this episode is fun, but I think like if you actually analyze it, nothing in this episode really works or fits together at all.
No.
But it's a fun episode.
Well, it starts off like, Van Pelt. It's told out of order initially. It starts off Van Pelt's walking down an alleyway. Some guy's following her. It's like, well, he's gonna get shot or something. And then she turns around like, oh yeah, I want to talk to you. I need you to kill this man. And it's a picture of Rigsby. And it's like, okay, and number one, I know this is, unless this show is going in a really weird direction, I know this is like immediately, obviously not what's really going on.
Yeah, that felt like a move because it doesn't really make a lot of sense to start with it, other than like it's an exciting like, wait, what's going on, and like come back from the credits. So I feel like that might have been something they changed in editing. They tried to save this episode in editing or
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah, because immediately it's like, well, this isn't what's really going on.
Yeah, the only thing I was guessing is is this a Jane ruse, or has Van Pelt advanced enough with the scourge of Jane that she is doing her own ruses along the Jane lines? But no, it's a Jane ruse. So
Yeah, yeah.
she didn't take it upon herself to do that. Yeah, like Nathan said, like that's the opening. But then we come back and then we come back to a crime scene. And it says like, I don't know, like 6 days earlier or something like that.
Oh, it's like 36 hours. But
Oh, okay. And it's Kelly Flower, who is an assistant district attorney, and she was shot at her home. And then we have James kind of being bemused by like the cops trying extra hard because there's there's a cop, essentially a cop's been murdered. But also like Jane's talking about there's nothing wrong with revenge, which is like him trying to justify his own his own purposes, his own methods, and reason with why he helps with the solve these crimes.
yeah.
He also mentions like, see, there's nothing wrong with revenge. Look at Rigsby. He's been hitting the gym like 6 times a week ever since he broke up with Van Pelt. And then Van Pelt's like, yeah, it's like, I guess, yeah, I don't care. That's good for you.
Yeah.
And then we have Cho, the district.
Well, yeah, because there's kind of like back to the investigation though. There's kind of like a Jane like struggle type speech about, oh yeah, it's unlimited overtime and manpower when it's one of yours, but what if it's just some guy? It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, so yeah, and but he's just doing that to be argumentative.
Yeah.
Which I thought it's like, yeah, that's fun. I like class warfare, Jane. Sometimes it comes out.
Well, yeah, because under like the fairness of the law, like technically that should be like what happens, but it's like the law is applied very irregularly. So,
Oh yeah,
it's
when cops and judges and district attorneys get killed, which they do sometimes. Yeah, it's always like this national manhunt.
Yeah.
Because, well, if you let those people get killed and you don't like find out who did it, that only encourages more of that same behavior.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to a courthouse?
Yeah.
Like recently to testify or have to give statements or anything?
No.
Oh yeah, the physical security stuff is like, oh, am I getting on an airplane? It's like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, I had to walk in a courtroom in like a couple weeks ago, and like I had to like undo the belt and everything. So
yeah, it's nuts. Do you have a valid picture ID? You carrying any weapons on you? It's like, why are you asking me now? I'm already here. Yeah, no, don't do that. By the way, they don't have a sense of humor about that sort of thing. But yeah. Anyway, the show.
And then because this DA was like she was working on a big crime against like some, like dock gang, some Italian gangsters or whatever. And so Cho and Van Pelt go to the docks looking for Mr. Draper. They're greeted by a gang of dock workers.
Marlon Brando's there. Waterfront. Yeah.
We have Jane and Lisbon interviewing Flowers' husband. Then a contractor shows up, and Jane's like really interested in him for some reason. Thinks he's a psychopath because he didn't think twice about stepping in someone's blood.
Yeah. Because he's asking about water heaters. It's like, what should I do? On demand or just traditional?
Yeah. Which he has answers, but
yeah, it's like a guy knows what he's doing as a handyman, but it's just a Jane head game.
Yeah. I was wondering if this was going to be an episode where like Jane gets everything wrong, which happens like maybe once a season, but that's not that. It's not that episode. In fact, we already had it, so we can't have it again. We have Cho and Van Pelt talking with the Draper family. His mom is senile, and then he claims it wouldn't be good for him to kill a DA, so that's kind of like the end of that for a while. We find out that that the construction worker is named Sylvan, but he's changed his name a bunch of times, but he's also like associated being around these murders. And they're like, well, obviously he's a hitman, but we can't just like put it together somehow. It's
Like, yeah, wait a minute. You have his name, and he's like death adjacent to all these people that died suspiciously. It's like we can't draw any conclusions. I was like, huh? All you do is okay, but yeah, go for the point for this story. Yes, let's go with that.
well, we have to have like Jane has to be fed up with the justice system, and so he has to go outside of it to solve the murder. So
Yeah, I understand what they're setting up, but it's also kind of like an obvious, like, okay,
yeah. Yeah, then we have Cho and Jane on a stakeout, and then Jane just leaves to get coffee, but doesn't. But we don't find that out till later. Van Pelt traced Sylvan's money, so that they're like, all right, yeah, this guy's a hitman. He just like changes his name every time someone dies, then suddenly has money. So like this is pretty obvious. So then that's when I believe they're able to get a search warrant. Well, no. To get the search warrant, they do. We go back to the opening, and so that plays out again, but it's like with further detail where Sylvan has a video of Flowers being killed. He holds a box cutter up to Van Pelt's throat as like a test, which I thought like this Sylvan video was like, I thought like it was gonna have some technicality because it's like in first person. It's like, okay, well we don't know who's behind the camera. We don't know if he killed him. But then later on, they show a video where he's like holding the camera up to the mirror to get like the right. It's like, okay, yeah, we know it's him. So.
yeah, they go out of their way to like, well, the evidence seems pretty solid. This looks like a slam dunk, and I know from watching this show, this is like some kind of misdirect.
So we come back. They arrest Sylvan, and we come back, and there's like a court hearing, or it's like what do they call that? It's like the first part of it where it's like
pre-trial, like
discovery. Or yeah, pre-trial.
Yeah.
And then Jane has a line. He says, "Catching killers I enjoy, but being reminded we're just a cog in a petty fascist machine, that's a little depressing." So
there we go. It's more Jane class warfare.
We have CBI testifying in court. The defendants are trying to get the video of the killing thrown out, but also they talk about like they call Lisbon called the judge Judge Dredd, so apparently they have trouble with him for some reason.
That famous character actor deceased recently, William Lucking.
Yeah,
you've seen him in everything. Yeah, he's Judge Frank Hildred.
He just looks like a drunk father. So
yeah, he does. Yeah, he looks like yeah.
He looks like he should be like a brother to like Wilford Brimley, or who's the guy from the squeal like a pig guy.
Oh, Ned Beatty.
Yeah, Ned Beatty. Yeah.
You have played with the fundamental forces of nature.
We have two judges this episode or this week. So
yeah. One was dead. Well, she was a district attorney, but yeah.
No, we have a judge also in the Miami Vice episode.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yes, we do. And I have a personal story about that guy.
Oh, okay. So we find out that Jane broke into Sylvan's house to find the evidence, and he's found out because they have a teacup with his fingerprints on it. And because like Jane always goes into like the murder house or like a potential suspect's house and just makes tea. So this is like the first time it bites him in the ass, and it's a fun thing because it's like they've been doing this the whole series, and finally it's like come back to bite him in the ass. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, because he's always like there's no crime scene rules with him.
Yeah,
it's just a
some means to an end with his flourish of tea.
Yeah, but when this is introduced in court, they like swept the apartment of the assassin. They found Jane's fingerprints. It's like, oh, this is immediately. I thought in my mind, someone in the establishment, in the I thought it was like I read John recruit in the law enforcement
Yeah.
establishment. It's like, why did they look for Jane's fingerprints when he's always doing this shit? And it turns out like, oh, good on me. That was actually a major plot point later. But it's like, but it wasn't who I thought it was. I thought it was like, oh, there's yet someone else. There's another
Yeah.
force in here, but didn't end up being that. But yeah.
But so the judge throws out the evidence and basically the case with it, because that's like, it is a slam dunk, and it's like, all right, slam dunk's gone. What do you got? It's like nothing. um, and then we cut to like the prosecutor being like angry at Jane, and this is where I was like, okay, this guy is involved somehow, because he weirdly grabs the evidence gun and then like unloads it. And I'm like, why would anybody do that?
Yeah, and while it's pointed at Jane, he's like, "Yeah, it's not loaded." You know, like, oh, okay. This guy's doing something like strange.
Yeah. But it's not obvious. I'm like, I don't know how he's involved. I just know he is. I mean, the obvious thing is like, okay, because he says something like, you know, when I'm DA, so it's like, oh, he had her killed because he wants to be DA. So that's like what ends up happening. But it's not really obvious at the time, but that's what's going on. But really nothing's obvious, because this is like 3 episodes crammed together.
Yeah.
So we have and the prosecutor's name's Mark. He's a potential DA. We have a meeting with Hightower. Lisbon is put on like probation for 5 days. We have, which I'd never heard this before, it's called the Professional Standards Unit.
Yeah.
Which is probably weird. I don't know. Or maybe it's, you know, it's usually internal affairs is usually probably what.
Yeah, they just had to make it sound different and more ominous here.
Oh, there's probably a real thing. I didn't look it up.
Well, internal affairs would be more like if you committed a crime,
okay,
if you stole drug money or stuff. So I guess this is more like a procedural violations group. That could be it. I don't know.
Okay. So then they put like the department under review, and then Lisbon leaves. They go serve her suspension, and then Jane just kind of gets a slap on the wrist. So he's like, wait a minute. Aren't you going to yell at me too? I deserve that.
Well, it's more a Hightower's psychological games with trying to break the Lisbon Jane, codependency, I guess. I don't know what it is. Yeah.
Lisbon leaves Cho in charge. Cho and Risby get a coffee, or not Cho and Risby, it's Cho and Jane. They get a coffee. And then Jane has some line on Sylvan because he's like a coffee guy, because he couldn't find any tea in his place. So he's like, he's going to come here. And then Jane tries some hypnotism stuff, but like he does it so poorly. I'm like, okay, this is a distraction. And of course it is, because he like picks his pocket, but there's nothing. But what he picked out of his pocket is just kind of like sand, button, and like fluff. So
yeah.
It's
like, even Joe looks at it and is like, yeah, okay. Sand, a button, and fuzz. What are we going to get from that?
But then the team get a lead on like a gym, and so they're basically, all right, what gym is near the riverbed, where the sand came from, and so they're able to isolate. I forget how they get from the gym to the secret murder house somehow, but I can't remember exactly how they did that. But I guess maybe because I don't know. I guess maybe the gym membership was under the house's name or something like that, or whatever.
Yeah, well, they just it's kind of like a loose connection of like, where do they how many
we get from the sand to a gym and from the gym to the house. It's not really, that's the sequence of evidence, but we're not really like, I don't feel like it's strong, but we just get there. So then the CBI raid the murder house as like Sylvan's about to stab a guy for some, and I forget what he says, something like that's what this is what you get for embezzling. So it's like, is he like a good guy?
Yeah.
Now
is the hitman our hero now because he's gonna kill one of those awful banker guys? with like, because there's like in the background there's like cordless drills and saws, and because it's just a murder house, it's just kill house.
And he's watching like some like 1930s cartoons, so he's psychotic.
Yeah, he's watching, eating cereal and something. Watching. It's like, well, I'm done here. I'm going to cut this guy up. Doesn't that make me crazy?
Um, so they get Sylvan before he's about to stab the guy, and then they're outside questioning him, and then there's like a laser starts showing up on like Cho's chest, and it moves to Sylvan, and he gets shot in the chest, and then he's dead, and now that's the new mystery: who killed Sylvan and why? Um, we come back from commercial, and they're digging up the front yard, and there's just bodies all over the place. Like,
Yeah, it's just
found
like
9 so far.
skeletons and all
Yeah.
kinds. Yeah.
Um, then we have Jane and Lisbon at the docks now. Jane invited Lisbon over to like try to give her a win, even though she's on suspension. um, but he says he got something, and so now Jane's looking into Draper. So they're back at the Draper. And I paused the screen at a weird time where like they have a shot of like the senile old lady, and then I forget what the lines on the screen because I have the subtitles on. I'm like, oh, she's not senile, she's running the whole thing.
Yeah.
And it's weird. It's like I wasn't suspecting that until I paused it, and then I just knew what was going to happen. So yeah, she's faking her senility so that she can run everything, and then everybody can be kind of none the wiser because they get to be the idiots they are. But there's a fun thing, kind of like Jane history thing, where he's like, I should have checked the shoes, because there was that one episode where he like solved the case because he always checks like somebody in the wheelchair, their shoes, to see if they have scuffs on them, to see if they actually are wheelchair bound. And they're like, how many times has it worked? He's like, never. This is the first time. So he's mad at himself they didn't check the shoes.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fun callback, so I remember that episode.
Then we have Lisbon, like, it looks like they're going to kill him, but then they just put Lisbon and Jane in a container, and they send them away to Mexico in, like, I don't know, like 2 hours somehow.
Yeah. They use a Chinook.
Just Chinook it right from the docks.
Yeah. To the middle of the desert in Mexico. Like, no one's going to be suspicious.
Jane's trying, like, while they're in there, Jane's trying to get back in the good graces of Lisbon, but she's not really having it. It's like, and then some kid with a goat lets them out of the containers. That's when it's like, okay, we're probably in Mexico. The kid never talks, but yeah.
Really weird part of California.
Yeah. Then I think we go to commercial because we come back and Jane and Lisbon just like break into the courtroom for some reason, just big theatrics, and then he flicks the nose of the prosecutor, and then the judge has the bailiffs detain Jane. Then we come back and like Jane's like not in like a holding cell or anything like that, but we have Jane talking to Joe, who's like reading a book that's just like a law book, and he asked Cho, like, did you know there's 30 types of battery? And deadpan Cho just says, yes, I do.
Yeah. Of course I know that.
And then Jane's thinking about representing himself in court, which is what he does. They get into court, and Jane's just making a fool out of himself in the court, but it's all a ruse to be like an interrogation on Mark the DA, which is what the real thing is about. And so they did it. There's something where he asked the judge, like, are you a hunter? And then the DA knows some like specific like gun trivia, and that's where Jane's like, oh, why would you know that? Like, you must be good with guns or whatever. And then like, I think he has to answer some question, then they like cut and put him in the interrogation room, and like they have like the sniper rifle he used to kill Sylvan.
Yeah, because district attorney's not smart enough to know that like I should throw that away. No, I'm going to keep it to remind me of the good times, because he's not a psychopath. He's just a career guy.
Yeah.
He wanted that judge killed, or the other DA killed, because she took his spot as the head DA.
Yeah.
And he's like, I deserved it. I put the time in. And I thought this was going to go as like, oh, is this going to go down some racial road where it's like, they just put her in there, but it didn't. So I was like, oh, okay. How hateful are they going to make this character? But it's not what they did.
But he just admits to everything. It's like his ruse is over. His life is done with. So he'll get probably killed in prison or be in solitary confinement the rest of the day.
Yeah, because they love district attorneys in prison. Well, they said if he confessed, they took death off the table.
Yeah.
as a DA in California, he should know. It's like, well, they haven't used the death penalty since like the 80s. Like they have a long list of people, but they never implement it anymore because, because I think the only thing they have is the gas chamber, and that's like cruel, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't. Probably would be. I mean, it sounds cruel, but
Then I just have a giant industrial fan they push them off a ledge into.
just like a chopper blades. Death is instantaneous.
Death by wood chipper.
Yeah, just the mangler.
And then we have the final scene. We have like Lisbon and Jane with Hightower. She like sums everything up, but she does it in a way that makes everything they did seem unnecessary and complex, which it was.
Yes.
But then after she like just make sure like, okay, everyone agrees that's what happened, right? They're like, yeah. And she's like, all right.
Yeah, it's like you're off suspension. Good job. Again, it's the second time Hightower's done this.
Yeah.
It's like, oh well, yeah, it worked out in the end. It's like, well, if you've seen this happen 3 times, and you always say that, but yet throughout the episode, you're always like hard charging.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got to follow the rules. It's like, yeah, well, they obviously didn't, and yet it's fine.
Well, she mentions that like, well, by the end of the day, we caught a bunch of bad guys and we got a crooked DA, so that's a pretty big win for us. So everything's gonna slide.
And thank God everyone confessed and or died, because I don't think we'd get this through court again. But
yeah. And then the kind of the punchline is Jane owes the court $16,000.
Yeah, because even though that judge like let him go and let him do stuff like that and behave that way in court, he did find him in contempt every time.
Yeah.
Because the judge was interested in what he had to say, but he's still like, yeah, you owe the court like $16,000.
And then the final line is kind of funny, or the final 2 lines, because like Jane's like, it's like, well, they're both kind of like deflated, even though they like solve things, but it's like, we should go let off some steam. So he just goes, you want to go to the range and shoot something? And then Lisbon just goes, I'll drive.
Yep.
Yeah, he also calls her like the poster girl for the NRA when they're at the dock, because she's like, I bet you got 2 guns in that car, and then she just kind of like looks away. He's like, 3. We know Lisbon likes to shoot people.
Yeah, she doesn't have any problem with that.
Well, I'm not sure likes. She's completely indifferent to it, and she's willing to do it, and she does it at the correct time every time she shot somebody. So it was also kind of a weird moment where like Jane says like, I always protect you, you Lisbon. And it's like, you did that once. She protects you all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, because like they have to tell him sometimes, okay, you can come out now, Jane.
Yeah, they did it in this episode.
Yeah, it's like, okay, the danger's over. Oh, good.
Yeah, the serial killer / hitman has a knife to Van Pelt's throat, and then when everything's handled, they can tell Jane to come out, and everything's cool.
Which I kind of appreciate, because that's exactly how I would be. Because like in the first episode of the first season, I think when he figures out who the guy is, he tells Rigsby, it's like, yeah, get your gun out. He's got a gun. He's done things. I don't have one, so
yeah. It's fun to have your smart sort of like hero also be a coward, but like smartly a coward. It's like, I'm not the one with the guns. They are.
Yeah,
I'm just a consultant.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to shoot people, so I don't. So yeah, I think it was a fun episode, but I think like if you actually analyze it, it was just a jumbled mess of nonsense, but they managed to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, I was satisfied at the conclusion of it. I was like, yeah, okay. But I wasn't like, oh, wow, I'm sure glad I watched that, But hey, not everyone's going to be a hit.
Because it was like a crooked DA episode. You got your docs, your crooked docs episode. And like it didn't really mesh together. You got like a hitman thing too in the episode. It's just like Shouldn't have worked, but it was fun. So
Well, they tied it all together in kind of a ridiculous way,
yeah,
where it's like, yeah, why not? I mean, it's okay.
and
I didn't pay $30 to see this in the theater, so sure, yeah,
and I think they wrap up the whole dock workers or the Draben gang. I think they only wrap it up by saying like offhand, like we caught them at the border or something like that.
yeah, they're heading to Canada or something.
um, and then for our third show, we have Miami Vice Season 2, Episode 19, The Fix. Original air date March 7th, 1986, NBC Friday. After Crockett and Tubbs arrest a dealer at the bail hearing. At the bail hearing, sorry. At the bail hearing, the judge sets a low bail. Crockett is curious there's something wrong with him, so he investigates. It seems the man has a gambling problem, and now he's being told to tell his son, who's the player of his school, to throw a game to sell his debts. Showrunner Michael Mann, written by Chuck Abson, and directed by Dick Miller. I always appreciate the gambling episodes because it's just a different Vice thing.
Yeah,
But they're almost never good.
no, no, that because it's always like it's just people with just unquenchable like you can understand drug addiction to a point, but it's like people that are willing to take incredible risks and lose their life over gambling seems kind of weird. But I've never had a problem with gambling because I don't gamble because I'm terrible at math. So it's just like, gambling's probably not my thing.
But also,
I'm
like,
good enough at math to know that the house always wins. So it's like, well, I don't see a point in doing this thing.
well, also the thing with gambling back then is that it was seen more as more seedy because, like, if you didn't live in Las Vegas, it was all underground and illegal.
Yeah, it was all criminal stuff.
Whereas nowadays, it's basically just commercialized and enterprise. So
yeah, it's like I can gamble right now online in Michigan, perfectly legal, and empty out my entire bank account and be like, well, better luck next time. You know, it's like, I don't know if this is a good thing. They say it brings in tax revenue, but I don't know.
I was like, it's like because I'm paying attention to F1 now. I should just set dollar bets on all the stuff available and see what happens. And I just know like, nah, because if I lose, I know I'm going to like try to get my win back. And if I win, that's also going to be a horrible problem.
This makes me happy.
Yeah.
How can I recreate this over and over again? It's like, we can show you how. And then like a year later, you're just like walking around with a bag on a stick. Like, where did my life go wrong? It brings the happy, just like biscuits and food. And it's like, yeah, that's not working out too well for either of us. So it's like, okay. Oh.
And I think like kind of the main reason this episode doesn't work is that there's a lot of people in this episode that aren't actors and they are delivered a heavy burden of delivering a very traumatic episode. So
yeah, this wasn't easy on anyone.
We start out, there's like some nature shots of birds. It's like some bird sanctuary in Miami. It's a different look. Never seen that before. Never seen a drop off drug deal at a bird sanctuary. So that's cool.
Well, I guess it was the birds were interfering with their comms almost because they were so loud, which I thought was going to play a part in it, but it probably didn't really.
No. We have Crockett and Tubbs are waiting on some action to happen. They're talking about Ortega shows up in a limousine. We have Zito and Switek like dressed in police uniforms, just like observing from a distance somewhere. And it's kind of weird because like, I guess it's not weird. It's Tubbs and Crockett are still undercover, but they're still like hiding in the distance and have very obvious like earpieces in and stuff.
Yeah, like big 80s like earpieces. I'm surprised they don't have a backpack with an antenna coming out of it.
And there doesn't seem anybody like working in this bird sanctuary, and I don't know how bird sanctuaries work, so who knows?
It was just a Florida scene.
Yeah. There's a deal happening on some wooden bridge inside there. And like, yeah, I don't know what a normal bird sanctuary is, but this it's basically just like there's tall trees and then just like a giant netting over just a slew of trees.
Yeah, it's a weird scene.
Yeah.
Sometimes the stuff there's a lot of weird scenes in this episode though. A lot of weird shooting locations.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We'll get to the weirdest one pretty soon.
Yeah, I love that one.
So some guys like looking at money. They're handing off probably drugs or something. The guy looks at the money, then the other guy shoots him, and he grabs like both like the drugs and the money, and they just runs with it. So there's like a Weasley guy there who's like, "Hey, what's going on? Like that's not right. To
Don't
exchange
do
the
that.
drugs
That's
for the money."
bad. Yeah, he's like an idiot. I think he's just like a runner for Ortega.
Yeah.
What's his name? Berlois or something? He has a weird name.
Yeah, it's Barrelows, but I think you put like Barrelows or something like that. Like I'm not sure if you,
I just thought it was.
I'm not even sure you pronounce the Z. I'm like Barrilo or something like that. He has a first name, but on the Internet Movie Database credits, it's not mentioned. But he is called by a first name. It's like Frank or something like that. I can't remember.
Okay.
They say Ortega's taken off, and so like the guy has like I don't know, like a mini Uzi or a Mac 10, one of those.
Probably a Mac 10 in that era.
I mean, they've had both. They just kind of switch. They kind of switch between. Like what?
I always associate the Mac 10 with Miami drug crime because it was actually a very popular gun. For that at that time.
And so they're thinking that guy's Ortega. He takes off and he's like he's exchanging fire with Tubbs. Crockett stops the Weasley guy. Tubbs shoots who we think is Ortega, and he drops a bunch of cash all over the place. And then I wrote error. Switek looks in the car and he's like, there's some lady with a fancy hat, and he's like, "No way, Ortega's a woman." And it's like you know, like it's a big mystery or something. It's like,
then we roll credits.
Yeah, it's like we've already had like women be criminals in this season. It's not
some of the most violent criminals too.
Yeah, we had a serial killer like 2 episodes ago. Credits come back, and now we're at a horse racing track, and we have a young Harvey Firestein.
Yes. It's like, hey, is that Jeff Goldblum's boss from Independence Day? Yeah, sure is.
But she has a super distinctive voice, and I looked up his acting credits. It's like, have they just put this guy in everything? It's like, no, he only has like 50 credits. So
yeah, he's more of a playwright in New York.
Okay. I didn't know if he was like some comedian or something like that, and that's what he did mostly. And then this is kind of a
I think he's more a New York stage guy, as I understand it. I mean, he was most famous for like being openly gay in the 60s as an actor.
Yeah.
It's like he never like hid it, and he acted that way, and everyone was like, wow, that guy's ballsy, you know? Yeah, it was funny to see him. It was like, oh wow, okay. But he's playing a sleazy lawyer in this. Doesn't have a lot of comedy roles in this.
No. But yeah, he's a good sleazy lawyer. They even call him Benedict, so you know.
He's a scumbag.
And then there's a montage of horse racing stuff, and then suddenly there's dog racing. But he was talking to a judge, Judge Roger Ferguson. He's a gambling addict. He is played by Bill Russell, the basketball legend. So.
Who is one of the few celebrities I've ever met. Yeah, when I was 8 years old at Logan International Airport, 1982, I met Bill Russell when me and Dad were there picking up Mom. And I went and talked to him because I had like a little model airplane or whatever. And he actually talked to me. And Dad was like, later, he's like, yeah, that guy's famous for not being very nice to people. So it was like actually kind of cool that he talked to, because I remember all I saw was like this giant man in a really small chair. He's like a 6 foot.
He's 6'10".
Yeah, so he was obviously a basketball player. But I didn't know that. I was just a little kid. I was like, oh, look at this tall man. Look at my plane. And he was talking about it. And Dad was like, that's Bill Russell. So, yeah, he's one of the few celebrities that I've ever met. I've only met a couple others. And because I met, what's his name? Lawrence Fishburne at a hotel once. he was walking by. I was like, "That's Lawrence Fishburne." He looked back. He's like, "Hey," and he just walked out the door. I mean, I'm not gonna like go up. And, oh, give me your picture, but
Can you
and
sign
then
this so I can sell it on eBay?
yeah, I was. Oh, that was in the night. That was like when he was doing the CIA movies. That was way before the Matrix or anything. And then who's the other guy I met? Oh, not yeah, it was not Warren Beatty. This guy who played Rain Man. What's his name? Not Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Is the other guy in there? Yeah. Why am I drawing a blank on him? Because like I said, one of the few celebrities I've ever met.
Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, I met Dustin Hoffman. He was walking by in Ann Arbor. I was like, oh, that's Dustin Hoffman. He doesn't look the same off camera as he does in real life. He's actually a lot smaller than what you'd think.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. I mean, Bill Russell I actually talked to when I was 8 years old at the airport in Boston. So. As soon as I saw this, I was like, I got to call Dad and make sure. It's like, yeah, that was him. It's like, okay.
So yeah, this Judge Roger Ferguson here, he loses a bunch of money because he's just gambling all day and it's like all his money's gone.
Yeah, just like degenerate gambling. Because it starts out with horses and it looks kind of cool. And then it gets down to dogs.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's just
yeah, he's just
there's like a wallet with hundreds in it just folded sideways, and he's just throwing the tickets up in the air because his dog never wins or his horse never wins. So it gets across to us in like a 1 hour montage that this guy has a gambling problem. So it goes on. It takes its time.
And then we got to the weirdest courtroom I have ever seen.
Oh, when I saw this, I was like, "Is this like sci-fi court? Are we in Star Trek court? What is this?"
Yeah, it is like they must have made it, but it's like made to. I mean, because I know it'd be cheap to make.
Really tacky formed concrete.
Yeah,
like
it's
tables and stuff.
It is in a I believe it's a brutalism style where it's like simple shapes made out of concrete. But it's a courtroom and it looks weird and uncomfortable, but it's like it's distinctive.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely a fall hazard. You better hope no one gets violent in that courtroom because it's just square concrete they're going to be smashing into.
But
I saw that.
It's not like perfectly square. It's like there's like parts are pushed in and they come out. It like looks like some kind of weird Jenga thing with concrete.
Yeah, it looks like something you made with your hands. Like you just like formed it roughly into a square. I was looking. I was like, did they shoot this in some weird art museum or something? I never found out where this was. But it was like the dumbest.
Yeah, I have to imagine that they made it and like that wasn't real concrete, that they just like sprayed something that like probably sets and looks like concrete, like on cardboard boxes or whatever, and it's like, all right, here we go. This is the courtroom.
Yeah, this is the courtroom. And maybe it was done that way for some artistic thing because Ortega's trying to set bail or get a bail hearing. And it's like, oh, we want to set it, at like millions of dollars because this person can flee the country. She has dual citizenship and all this. And the judge is like, no, it's, she's pregnant and her husband's been hurt. So yeah, that's $7,000. And then, of course, Crockett and Tubbs look at each other like, okay, something's not right.
And of course, Benedict there was meeting with her, so he's getting money to get the bail set low for his client. So
yeah,
which is funny because I thought like, wow, to get like a judge to do that, like you'd have to give them so much money. But like we don't know, it was probably a bigger like amount here, but by the end, like when he's trying to get the deal for the other guys, like I think we get $5,000 out of this. Like you sold your career out for $5,000.
Yeah, it's like how much money you're making being a judge in South Florida. It's like it's a pretty good income, and it's like anyone would sell out for a price. But I doubt $5,000 is that price. I wouldn't do crime for $5,000 and 20 years in prison. I'd be like, no, that's not worth it, dude. I would do it for 20,000 in today's money. It's like, God, it seemed kind of weird, but it's like, okay.
But like, we don't know I don't think we ever get the amount what he got for this.
Yeah.
Set the bond setting. So it could have been higher here. and because the other guy was less of a criminal, like maybe he was just setting it lower. But also it just like shows like how far like he is willing to go to support his gambling habit. He's like here's $5,000 to sell out your career. So
Yeah.
But also I think Benedict's picked up on this. Like he knows his weaknesses, so he just keep the cash flowing. So of course, immediately like Tubbs and Crockett are suspicious of the judge. They're gonna try to run down a different angle for Ortega, while Castillo tries to do something about the judge.
Yeah.
We have Tubbs and Crockett, and they're interrogating Barillo's or Barillo. He's the Weasley guy, and he tells him that like I think the Benedict guy is like giving money to the judge. Then Tubbs and Crockett go to a basketball game where the judge's son is playing. He's like a college basketball recruit. He's a real basketball player.
Yeah.
I believe he was hurt at the time. He was a Knicks. He played for the Knicks, and he had like a pretty bad knee injury, and I believe he was hurt at this time. So I think he was doing this in between like recovery.
Because Bernard King.
Yeah, because he was like a number one like scorer. Like he was like him and Jordan were like trading scoring titles essentially. So he's a real ass basketball player.
Oh yeah.
And then they see so they're going there watching the judge as the judge watches the game. They see the judge get like a tap on the shoulder and then he's gone. And so they give chase, but the judge is taken away by some guy. And they take him to his bookie, who's Michael Richards.
Yeah.
Yelling
I
out
was
black guy.
surprised to see that.
And so he gives him a bunch of money, but he's like, yeah, this is just the entrance. You still haven't paid the principal, so. And so he wants the judge's son to throw a game for him, so he can make a bunch of money or whatever. So.
Yeah, and then we cut back to like, so we have that meeting. Then we come back to like Tubbs is talking with another homicide detective.
Yeah,
and that's why the judge is known as Let 'em Run Ferguson. He's always set these low bails in 2 murder cases this other guy was doing. So the judge is like, oh yeah, the circle's tightening. It's like everyone seems to know that like something's not working out.
Yeah,
with this judge.
But Castillo is able to get a bug in Benedict's office, which Trudy and Gina put in. It's kind of a weird scene because it's like, oh, will they get caught? And then they just don't, and then we're done. So it's like,
yeah, I was gonna be like, what's the tension here? She's pretending to work for the phone company. Is Benedict going to recognize her on sight as a cop? I mean, I never understood like the what the tension was in that scene. It was just kind of a weird. It's like, what does this mean?
But you got to have Trudy dressing up as like a phone worker, and then you have Gina in her cop uniform. Or was she supposed to be like posing as security? I can't remember.
I think she was posing as building security.
Okay, yeah, because we saw earlier in the first scene, because like Switek and Zito and Switek were in their uniforms that are like brown, and then she had like a blue kind of uniform on.
Yeah, she looked like a New York cop, but that was a security unit because they're like, I think they're affiliated with the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Department. I think is like that's their actual. So they'd be like sheriff's people, and I don't know who works for the city or whatever. I think it's a joint task force. It's never clear. It's like whatever.
We had the girls play dress up, and it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Then we have Barillo goes to set up Benedict by like flashing some money that they got out of the evidence locker or whatever. And then we have the judge kind of longing over his eventual betrayal of his son to throw games.
Yeah. Which, if you really think about it, is like that's like horrible. Like that's really depressing.
And so he admits to his son that he has a gambling problem, and then he asks him to throw the game, and which he's conflicted about. Both of them, really, but
yeah.
And then we have Zito and Switek have the judge's office bugged, and so they pick up a conversation with him and Benedict, but this is where he like has a churn, and so the judge doesn't want to do favors for money anymore, so he's basically like backing out of it. And then he talks to his kid, and his kid says he's going to throw the game. And I wrote here, is Vice conflicted? Because it's like, oh, he's stopping the criminal activity he's been doing for who knows how long. And they're like, well, as long as he stops it now, we're just going to say it's cool and not investigate anymore. It's like, no, he's a judge, a trusted member of the law. He did a crime. He goes to jail.
Yeah, it's not like, well, all's fair in love and war. I mean, you clearly have a ongoing criminal conspiracy going on, but now you want to pull up stakes. So I guess, well, if you stopped, and yeah, it was kind of a weird moment. But this Miami Vice is known for those weird moments.
Yeah, I mean, it happens in every show where it's like we're suddenly like.
Well, you also have a celebrity playing the character.
Yeah.
So and you've got a couple celebrities in this show, basketball players at this time, former and current. Because I think Bill Russell was like an announcer for CBS. I don't know if it was during this time or he was retired from that, but yeah, he was like, everyone knew who he was.
Yeah. And it's just fun to see him all the scenes because he is a giant man.
Yeah, when remember he was walking into that building and other people look like children like next to him and stuff, and he's just like,
or even when he's next to the what's the guy's name?
Michael Richards.
Yeah, Michael Richards, who's also a tall man.
Yeah,
they're in that boat. Michael Richards can stand up in that boat, but Bill Russell has to duck the entire time.
Yeah, he's ducking all his scenes. Pagan is his name, or Pagone.
Yeah, it's like Pagoni or something like that. That's the Michael Richards character.
Now I must say, when Michael Richards started ranting at him, and I'm not gonna like get close, but when I think about the rant he went on in his Comedy Store, thing that ended his career, I was like, oh, is he gonna say it to Bill Russell? But no, it's like, oh no, this was 30 years before that. So he was like, you know what you are? You're a loser. I was like, whoa, oh, loser. Okay. Michael Richards isn't gonna go nuts. But you know what I'm talking about, and so does everyone else.
Yeah. The other time, Michael Richards yelled at a black man.
Yeah. On camera. Because it was like he was acting exactly the same as he did in like Seinfeld and stuff. You know, the same manic head shaking like.
The judge's son is going to sit out the game, but that doesn't satisfy Pagone. He wants him to throw the game, which I don't know if like that make the margins closer. Well, I guess if like a guy was going to sit out the game, then the margins would change. But also, I don't know what gambling is at this time, so it's like.
Well, the problem is if he's actually playing in the game, people are going to be betting on the averages of based on past performance. If he just sits out, you're not going to get those bets.
Yeah.
Versus throwing the game, which it's like that's the tension, as I understand.
Yeah. And like I said, like at this time, like, you know, gambling is not legal in most places, but like how many like weird gambling scandals are there from the 80s? And there's tons.
Oh yeah.
Gambling scandals still exist. And so
still, I mean, the NBA, like I said, they have like a whole NSA set up for their games because they've had a lot of incidences of referees making crap calls because of, you know, gambling influence corruption. And so like every time a ref makes a call in an NBA game, there's like 15 other professional people that make calls watching. It's like, yeah, that looks legit. That looks legit, because that's the only way they could preserve integrity. And it wasn't because the players were throwing the game; it's because the officials were being bought off. Because this was before the multi-million-dollar basketball deals.
Yeah.
In the 80s, that started like in the mid to late 80s, but it's not like it is now. It's like, wow, we're paying a guy $1 billion for one season or something.
Why would he ever throw a game?
Why? What could you offer that man? The sun? What are you going to give him? You know.
Which there's kind of a weird thing now, where it's you had when you had the which you've had like fantasy baseball and football. That's been around forever, but now it's kind of become more pervasive and a part of the sport, and now it's also a gambling thing too.
Yeah. Oh, you knew it was coming.
Yeah. DraftKings, it's not just fantasy football, it's gambling.
Yeah. Not just fantasy football, it's the mortgage.
and and there's been like this uptick. I've heard like coaches talk about where there's been this uptick on injury reports, and it's not like sports writers asking these questions. It's like fantasy sports guys.
Yeah.
It's like, we gotta know.
Hey, coach, this is Jeff with Fantasy Superstars. Wondering about the ACL tear. It's like, what are you? Who? Sports Illustrated? What are you doing? Oh no, it's for the fantasy league. It's like, huh? Back in my day.
So they get like a really. So they always know it's like a fantasy football question when it's like very specific and seems, but not in a way, because like sports writers, they want to know this stuff too, but they want to present it in like a story, and they want the they ask questions in a certain way so that the response sounds like poetic or like a part of a
they're interested in the human element of like these guys are like, is this a vertical or horizontal tear? They like have like a surgeon in the fantasy league, like, well, get the details and I can tell you how bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is fun because like, oh, that's how the teams are operating.
Yeah,
they want to know that stuff about other teams too, but just nobody says that stuff out loud.
Yeah, these guys are they're a lot less like circumspect about. Yeah, they're just stat heads. It's like, yeah, we got to know this, but not for the love of the game, or not for the love of the real game.
Then we have Crockett. He's talking with the judge, and then Crockett's really sympathetic here because he tells the judge a story where basically like he said he grew up in a war zone, and not like a literal one, but just like in a very crime-ridden neighborhood in Florida.
Yeah, inner city stuff. Yeah,
and played ball and became a judge, a very respectable person. So he came from nothing to lift himself up. So that's why Crockett doesn't want to just like throw this guy in a jail. He's like, well, if you're turning a leaf, I'm gonna let you turn it. So.
Yeah.
He even says like, I'm not here to, just forget about the badge. I'm not here to, I'm just discussing this with you as a person. And so he wants him to give up the bookie. So he like just arrest the bookie and like, then we'll wrap that up. And then you won't have to owe him anymore. And then you can go back to being, a good person. So then the judge tells his son not to throw the game. And then he goes to the bookie boat, pulls a gun on one of the guard, tells the guard to jump in the water, and he does. Then he goes in and he shoots Michael Richards like in front of like his girlfriend or wife or whatever she's supposed to be, and then she's screaming. And then as he leaves, he ends up in a standoff with Crockett because Crockett was chasing after her. Because he's like, oh no, things are going to go bad. This is his worst nightmare of what's going to happen.
Yeah, this is exactly not what he wanted to happen.
And so he's like, don't do it, man. And so like he points the gun away from Crockett to shoot himself in the head. So.
And he does. And then it cuts back to Crockett looking horrified, and then credits.
Yeah. They hold on his reaction and then freeze frame.
Yeah.
Which they usually freeze frame and then like gunshot. Here they just like, here's the horror. I don't show him shooting himself, but they just hold on Crockett for a long time. So.
Yeah, it's a dark ending.
Yeah.
And like, because I warned you, like Miami Vice gets dark as it goes on.
Which is this is like our second like suicide at the end of an episode in like the past 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Because the other guy just ran into pretty sure he was attempting suicide of running his car directly into a wall, but we don't know if he actually died. But
yeah, we never hear it. Yeah, there's no like episode to episode connections. Very, very rarely are there. There are some, but it's very rare.
But yeah, this is an episode with a lot of non-actors that are burdened with doing like heavy drama, and and they're not good actors.
Yeah, you knew these people weren't actors, but
They were basketball players, so that's what their characters were. So at one point in life, they were basketball players. So.
Well, yeah, and a lot of Miami Vice too. At the there's a lot of stuff in this series where it's just like the cultural, patois, what's going on right now, and it's like to us it seems silly, but at the time it's like, oh, that was a big get for a cop show, because Miami Vice is all style over substance. That's like its thing. It's like that's not a bad thing to say about Miami Vice. That's what it is. It was always a style show.
They're not necessarily there to train people to be actors, but they've sometimes have gotten performances out of non-actors before. But
yeah, they kind of construct like simple. What was it? They kind of construct like simple. How would you say, like, more simple characters for the actors who are non-actors to play
or find ways for them to play themselves, essentially.
Yeah,
this like we have with Phil Collins, where I feel like Phil Collins wasn't like necessarily like acting his character; he was just being a heightened Phil Collins.
Yeah, he was just kind of like just a rough London kid type character that. It's like I can do this, and as a con man in America, and where this they gave like Bill Russell, who, legendary basketball player, also the first black coach in the NBA. I mean, a lot of firsts with that guy, came through a lot of stuff, and it's like, yeah, we're going to give you this meaty, complex role, but you were a basketball player at one point, but you became, like a judge, and you came from poverty, which was like, okay, being a basketball player and coming from poverty was Bill Russell's story. But then we're going to make you like, well, you're corrupt because of a gambling addiction, but you love your son, who was also a star, college basketball player. And they just gave him too much to, it's like, this is similar, but you've never been a judge. You don't know what corruption is. Apparently the Metro-Dade police don't really know what it is either. Cause it's like, well, if he stops, it's not corruption anymore. It's like, wait a minute. What about the years of corrupt? Like, it's not like, well, you stop, so it's cool. But again, it was kind of a weird episode, but it's fun to see.
Yeah,
it's like these were the celebrities of the day, and this is who they got to be on Miami Vice.
Yeah, it's like, hey, it's Harvey Fierstein. Hey, it's Michael Richards. That was fun for us. So.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, I recognize all these people. No licensed music in this episode. It's all Jan Hammer.
Okay. Because I didn't know, so when I don't notice, I guess I should take notice. Well, if you like,
it was kind of unique. I don't know what they're paying people to be in these episodes, because you can tell, or maybe they just didn't really couldn't find any music to license for this because it was kind of a downer episode. But so yeah, that's Miami Vice.
If you like what you heard, and how couldn't you, you can find us at anchor.fm/Verhoeven Effect. You can also find us at verhoeveneffect.com. That takes you to the same place. On whatever podcast platform of your choice you're listening to, if it allows a rating, you can rate us whatever you want, but the only thing the algorithm listens to is whether the highest rating is. So remember, you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. We also have listener support at verhoeveneffect.com. You can support us at a monthly fee of 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect, Facebook, Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory, where you can watch both this and that show live and unedited. And we also have t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/Greed Factory. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Colin.
I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.